If you have a medical background or biology stuff is right up your alley, then this soul ability that we're going to talk about today might be a great direction for you. And what's really cool about this episode is we get to talk to an actual medical intuitive who does this for a living. Elizabeth Thorson. She's going to help us understand what this soul ability is. That is medical intuition, a world of medical analysis and intuitive knowing. They combine into one magnificent soul ability. So we're going to talk about Elizabeth Thorson. We're going to get to know what medical intuition is. We're going to check out the definitions. We're going to check out my experience of medical intuition. But most importantly, we get to talk to a medical intuitive herself. I got to interview her, and we're going to play some clips of stuff that she had to say when it comes to our conversation and getting to know this soul ability. I want to know how she uses it, what happens, how it works for her, tips on how to develop your medical intuitive skills from a medical intuitive. How about that? And that's this episode on NextGEN Medium, the podcast. Sarah here with NextGEN Medium. I'm your host in the podcast of NextGEN Medium. I am also the founder of NextGenMedium.com. I do a blog, vlog, and podcast here, obviously, and it's all about getting to know your soul abilities. A couple years ago, I finally uncovered mine. I wasn't really looking for it, but there it was. And after 30 years of being on this earth and not knowing that I could do this stuff, it astounds me that I can. And it also astounds me that this could be for everybody. Like, nobody's immune. Like, everybody can do this stuff. And so it is my true belief that everybody can do this stuff. It's just you need some help getting there. We're not taught how to do this stuff. And with that, first of all, I want to make you aware that you are invited to this world too. This is yours. This is your birthright to do this stuff. It helps you. Why wouldn't you want to know this stuff? And it's pretty incredible to know that this could be yours. These could be your skills too. I also want to help you. I've developed truths along the way that I think could help other people during their development journey. And if there's something I can impart upon through the research that I do, through the experiences I've had, or just pass along a little piece of truth that I've accumulated, that I've curated for myself, then, I mean, if I can help impact somebody just a little bit during their development, then I feel like I've done my job. I feel like I've done something. I've done something right. And so that's what I do. And right now we're exploring the soul abilities with the Know Your Soul Abilities series, where we're taking a look at these individual kind of secondary soul ability skills. And they all are a part of these bigger skill sets of psychic, mediumship, intuition, healing. There's probably more, but those are the big ones I'm just going to mention. But those four, those are like the parent soul abilities. And then under that are these smaller kind of mix and match of those larger soul abilities, in which they have names like psychometry and medical intuition and mediumship. Actually, no, not mediumship. And precognition. So these names that I just listed are like those kind of secondary next tier, because they are pretty specific in their function, in how it works and what you receive. Sometimes it's a little more detailed than just those bigger ones, like your intuition or your psychic ability. So we're helping to know about the soul abilities, and more specific, this episode with medical intuition. Now, first, let's cover what soul abilities are. I think I explained it just a little bit, but there are different ways to use soul abilities, and it translates to those modes of psychic, intuitive, healing, mediumship. Now, it's not how you sense, but what you experience that makes a soul ability. I believe everyone has soul abilities. Some people seem to access it earlier, sooner, easier than others, but that doesn't mean that it's not yours. Also, some people have higher skills in certain abilities than others, and I think that is perfectly normal. Just like some of us are better at reading than others. It's just how your brain is kind of set up, and it works with the soul abilities, the soul senses as well. Now, you want to know which of these abilities are strong for you. You want to see this world for yourself. And opening up our scope of awareness when it comes to what is possible in this world helps us get a step closer to understanding our truth and understanding how impossible things can be possible now. So you want to get to know this stuff, and this is your chance to know one specific ability of medical intuition. And during the conversation, during the podcast, you can reflect on your past experiences. See if you've experienced something that aligns with how we're talking about things, what we're talking about. See how it fits in with experiences you've had. And maybe in the future, you'll have an experience and you'll know where to go. If you need to listen back and be like, holy moly, I think they were talking about this in this podcast episode that Sarah did. And maybe it'll help you in the future. For you to be able to identify what your abilities are and to transition, to get to know it and trust it and have it a part of your everyday life. So this episode, Know the Soul Ability series, focusing on medical intuition. So I had a hard time finding this exact term on the official word definers like Webster Dictionary, Cambridge Dictionary, but when I ventured to a more specialized website, thepracticalpath.com, here's the definition that they put out there that I think gives a general understanding of what medical intuition is. So they said medical intuition is defined as a system of expanded perception gained through the development of the human sense of intuition. It seems to be an emerging practice in alternative medicine as part of a collective for whole system care for an individual. Whole system is used to describe more than just that physical body, but also caring for the mind and the spirit, the energy and the mental stuff. So an easier term to find is the adjective phrase of medical intuitive, describing a person who practices medical intuition. A medical intuitive is able to pick up on your systems, your mind, your body, your spirit, and help narrow down our issues from their intuitive inclinations. From there, it's up to the medical intuitive how they continue either sending information to a traditional or non-traditional provider. So it's sort of like a consult, sending a report to a provider to help them narrow down a diagnosis to treat the clients. They can also recommend to the client next steps to help resolve issues, but usually it's very much a provider will get a hold of a medical intuitive to do a consultation on a client. And then from there, the medical intuitive will give their thoughts to the provider. And that's kind of it for the relationship with the patient. But one thing that I would like to mention, and that has plagued me throughout the experience of finding information on these different psychic soul ability types, is trying to find a voice of credibility on the internet when it comes to defining things. So this is the first subject I've come across in the Know Your Psychic Types series, in the Know Your Soul Ability series, that I've come across that my traditional sources of definition did not have a definition. So then I have to rely on less credible sources that are trying to sell an idea. So their ability to prove to me, with a definition, to provide me with a definition goes hand in hand with trying to sell a course or a membership or a reading. I find it really disheartening to not be able to find one or two credible organizations that just want to provide information without selling me something. So instead, sometimes I have to rely on sellers and businesses' definitions. But luckily for us in this episode, I can go right to a source. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So before we talk about Elizabeth Thorson, the medical intuitive, I wanted to chat about my experience with medical intuition. Now, I have not actively focused my skill set on medical intuition, but have had a few experiences in which I feel symptoms that other people are experiencing due to their condition. I would like to note that these examples were not purposely done. It's not like I was intentionally trying to pick up on pain or condition, but I think these examples are good to mention because it's relatable for the developing intuitive. So one example of medical intuition that I've come across and that I've mentioned before is feeling the condition of feeling pregnant. So I've had 3 kids. I've been pregnant 3 times. I know what it feels like to be pregnant in the different stages of being pregnant. And there was one time I started feeling pregnant and it went on for days. I even got to the point where I took a pregnancy test to see if I really was pregnant because I was feeling the condition of abdominal stretching that happens in the beginning stages. It can happen in the beginning stages of pregnancy, but also there is a crampiness that I felt too that kind of goes along with those beginning couple of months of being pregnant. And so I was freaking out, like, oh no, I'm pregnant again. But luckily for me, I overheard a coworker revealing that she was pregnant to another coworker, and it was kind of hush hush. Nobody really talking about it in the office. So I was unaware that she was pregnant, that this was her condition, but I overheard it in the other room. I was not eavesdropping. It just happened. But let me tell you what, I've never been more relieved to hear that. And it seems like as soon as I knew she was pregnant, that all the condition symptoms disappeared. And it was sort of like my energy was taking in the information and was starting to physically be a part of my condition. And I was not logically aware or knowing that I was even open enough to be receiving information from her. So let me tell you what, I've never been more relieved, but was able to reflect that my intuition was able to pick up on this. So once I became aware of my coworker's condition, the symptoms disappeared. And I'm all set with having another pregnancy. Like, I'm good. 3 kids, that's fine. But it was an interesting experience to have, to honestly think that I could be pregnant and to even be taking pregnancy tests because of it. And then once I knew where the source was, it wasn't me, gave me a broader gave me insight as to what my abilities are, like how much more of my abilities exist that I was not aware. And another one relating to work, another experience I had took place one morning, and I was feeling the symptoms of a cold coming on in my office at work. And I could hear my office mate next door in another room. I could hear him having a hard time. He was battling a brutal cold or flu for weeks. And mind you, hindsight 2020, this was December of 2019. What am I alluding to? Corona, but I don't think it was Corona, but I don't know. I don't know, but he had a hard time with this virus or whatever it was. But I was in the office next door, and I started feeling congestion and lung pressure and a headache. And I thought, oh my God, am I coming down with what he's got? This is crap. But I left work. And it seemed like like a half hour after leaving work, I was fine. Like, all the symptoms went away. And I am convinced that I was taking on his symptoms. And it really gives me insight that what he was going through, and it was pretty miserable. I don't know how he could work like that. But I've had medium experiences of taking on symptoms, including pressure in my legs from someone in spirit, having varicose veins. I've also taken on incredible migraines and dizziness from someone doing a reading. It wasn't even me doing the reading. Someone else doing a reading on a couple whose son passed due to a head injury. So that was an early view into taking on other people's pain and how, and that's always an interesting experience to look back on and to understand the scope of my abilities. But both times, all these times, once I'm able to know who the source of these physical symptoms that I'm feeling is, then it goes away. It goes away for me, which allows me to close my reception of energy messaging. And there are plenty of times when I'm getting this weird ailment all of a sudden, and it makes me wonder, okay, who's got this? I got to identify it, or else it's not going to go away. And sometimes it gets really frustrating because then I don't know what my problem is or what someone else's problem is. But that's an exercise in closing off. That is something that I need to exercise and be more strict about. So that's my problem. But anyway, so that's my experience with taking on the symptoms of others that I think is a part of receiving and gaining information as a medical intuitive, as a part of the soul ability of medical intuition. It gives you clues if you're a medical intuitive. All right, let's get to the meat of this episode. And it's all about talking to an actual medical intuitive, someone who does this stuff for a living, has done it for quite a while. Now, I have no experience actively pursuing this, so it's great to reach out to someone and get information for someone who does this. It's their thing. One of my side projects is researching psychic and medium intuitives just to learn who is out there, where they are, what their skill set is. And Elizabeth Thorson was one of those people on my research list. Lucky for her. And I got a hold of her. Luckily, she doesn't live too far away from me. Even though we did a Zoom call. I gotta find my notes here. Oh, here we go. So I found her through a Google search, and she happens to live in the same state as me, which is kind of cool because Maine, where I live, is one of those states where if you aren't in a certain area, which for Maine is like the southernmost point in the state, Maine's a really big state. If you don't live in that highly populated, dense area, then you're probably shit out of luck when it comes to getting to know your soul abilities, your soul senses, exercising, finding other people that want to do this too. So it was great to see she kind of lived kind of close to me and here in the state. So I started looking her up way before this because of me wanting to do research on people and finding out information about them. Eventually, I like to reach out to people to be able to talk to them about their experiences. So that was one of my big intentions with Elizabeth, was to actually get to talk to her. And having this podcast is a great excuse to talk to people and include them in the information that I can share with you guys. So it was great to have this time, to have this come up as a possibility for me to be able to chat with her like I wanted. So let me just say I have a full transcript of our conversation on my website. Also, we did a video chat. So the whole chat is on my YouTube, and you can check that out there if you want to see the whole thing. And I think the video translates much better than the transcript. We're using our hands. There's certain tones that we use that gives more meaning to what we're saying. But transcript is available if you want that, and that's on my blog that's dedicated to this particular episode. Medical, know your soul abilities, medical intuition. And let's see. All right, but I would encourage you to check out the video in the vlog. All right, Elizabeth. Let's learn about Elizabeth. She works professionally as a medical intuitive and an intuitive consultant. She works out of her practice in Camden, Maine. Beautiful Camden, Maine, right on the coast. And she offers medical intuitive readings, life path readings, business strategy consulting, after-death consultation, past life regressions, and animal communications. She actually gave me a life path reading, which was very helpful. She also does workshops and mentoring to develop other people's intuition. She works globally with clients of all ages. She works in person. She works on the phone. She uses, she works over the internet. She's been doing it for 25 years. And so there's a lot to her background, a lot of education, a lot of certification, which makes her the perfect person for us to talk to. And for you to talk to if you're looking for credibility, and if you're looking for someone with credibility and longevity in their career. And what's really great about Elizabeth is when you talk to her, you instantly trust her. So let's get started on listening to a couple of clips from our conversation. And I'm going to share with you the audio. And let's get started on our first question with her. So first, I wanted to know what her background was. As a medical intuitive, I would assume that there's medical background in there. But I want to know, how did the merging of the intuitive and the medical professional, how did this all come about? And here's her story. Now let's get into the soul ability type. How would she describe medical intuition? If someone wants a definition like we do, like we're having a hard time finding, here is what she imparted onto us. So throughout the conversation, I kept saying psychic. And I think every time I said it, she was just like, don't say that. She was cringing about it. But one of my questions was, what is her understanding of the soul ability she's using? What's in play? Is it psychic or is it mediumship? Are you using both? And which of these really are at play here? Now, at my time of understanding, I didn't understand the intuitive component, and with time, I've come to understand it a little bit more. And it was this conversation, it was this moment that changed my perception of how things work. So this is kind of a golden moment for me where I feel embarrassed about it, but at the same time, it shows how there's a constant evolution in your understanding of how things work. It's not written out for us. There's no directions. It really is your perception in developing your truth. So we're going to see what her answer is. I want to know, is it psychic? Is it mediumship? Is it both? Which of these are really at play? And she says neither. And she even explains to me why she doesn't use the term psychic. Here's what she had to say. So the big thing that I really wanted to know was, what is it that I have experienced that can parallel what she does? So where is my reference to what she does and how she does it? Through the experiences I've had. So I wanted to know how it felt to do a medical intuitive reading. What does she use for her clairs? Does she see things? Does she hear things? Does she feel things? Does she just know things? So how is that in general for medical intuitives? And here's what she had to say. So these are just the tiniest bits of the conversation. There's so much more. I think it goes on for an hour. But we go into like genetic components when it comes to these gifts, why we shouldn't be calling them gifts, and not GIF or GIF. I mean gifts with a T. Why they're not gifts, but they are skills. And we talk about the difference with the psychic and the intuitive. We also talk about ethics, and also we spill some tea with the popular mediums that you see on TV. So take a look at the full conversation on the YouTube channel, the full video recording, and also I got a transcript on my blog at nextgenmedium.com/blog. And with all of these soul abilities that we are touching upon, I have plenty of tips for you from very beginning of your exploring to doing your exploring, and some tips to keep in mind. And when you're further along and you start witnessing things, what's going to hinder your process. So to get started, I'm going to recommend meditation. It helps you get focused, be in a place of reception. And it also allows you to feel what it's like to be in your body and witness your baseline. Because it is working off of your baseline that you receive the incoming messaging that's abnormal for that place, for that baseline that you practice being in and witnessing. So do some meditation. It gets you there. It helps you focus on that inside mind world. And I have a couple of meditations for you to get started if you're new to meditation, or if you just want to do a guided meditation. I have a white light meditation and an energy protection meditation. And that's on my vlog, also in the post that's dedicated to this episode, Know the Soul Abilities, Medical Intuition. We also want to get familiar with our clairs. I have a huge list of clairs, probably the most comprehensive on the website that are on the web that I have come across. And it's a way of putting words, putting terms to your experiences. So understanding the tools, understanding your tools of how you sense this psychic soul world. Understanding your tools allows you to focus on these tools and use them to witness messaging and gain trust in your abilities. So go through that list. What resonates with you? What would you include as part of your experience when it comes to the clairs, the soul senses, the psychic senses? Also, when you are in the midst of doing your exercising, keep an open mind, observe what comes in, don't count out anything. You're probably going to meditate. I had to put that point in there. And point 4, document. You got to keep a journal or else you're going to lose track of what's going on. And you want to understand what's happening and how it happens for you, because no one else can keep track of that except for you. So be sure to have a journal. And last, when you are progressing through your journey, you're starting to witness things, you're starting to connect with which soul senses, psychic senses, which clairs are your tools, you're going to experience your ego getting in the way of receiving, of crapping up your messages, of being an obstacle to have to overcome. And I have a blog post all about identifying ego in your messaging, how it gets in the way, how you can identify when it gets in the way. In this way, you can start extrapolating the ego's influence and being able to bypass this hindrance in your process. So check out all the links, infographics, videos, all in this dedicated post for this episode, Know the Soul Abilities, Medical Intuition, on my website, nextgenmedium.com/blog. All right, let's get back to Elizabeth. She had some tips for those that want to develop their medical intuitive skills. And so I posed the question to her, what are ways for us to be able to practice medical intuitiveness? And this is directly from the transcript. She says, I think the hardest thing for people who don't have any kind of a medical background is getting the medical background. So, she says, I have over 25 years of experience in the medical field. She says, in the medical field, but also using her intuition as a base, as a place of information. But she says she can tap into that. So I think this is what she says, I think if you don't have any background in any shape, manner, or form, I think it's harder because you don't know. She uses Carolyn Miss as an example. Carolyn Miss is a person that you need to get familiar with because she's fantastic. Carolyn Miss, and this is from Elizabeth's conversation here. She says Carolyn Miss had no medical background whatsoever. She would just say, I see a pipe and the pipe is clogged at one point, or I see this and it feels hard or it feels soft. So she had to develop her dictionary, her vocabulary around this, her medical intuitive knowing, and it took time. And Elizabeth had a leg up on it. So her example is she'll see it, and so she has that clairvoyance where she'll see what's happening. She'll know that what she's seeing is a gallbladder, or it's a spleen, or no, it's the aorta, because she has the vocabulary, she has the visuals already as reference in her brain. She understands how the body works. She understands the organ systems. So she says, I think getting a background in anatomy and physiology would be very helpful for somebody who wants to do this. And because everyone gets the information differently, some people may just get the knowing. Oh, it's a heart. So there was Elizabeth's tip, is get some of that reference material in your brain to work off of your intuitive inklings. And Elizabeth's quick tips on practicing being a medical intuitive and training your intuition. She says, read, take in all the information you can, even if you don't think you could be interested. This is right on. Number 2, don't diagnose. This is a word of caution here. This is what she's saying directly from her. When you are practicing the world of medical intuition, you do not diagnose, because that is practicing medicine without a license, and you could go to jail for that. Love it. Laying it out, telling it like it is. She also says practice. First of all, I think reading as much as you can, exposing yourself to as much as you can, even if it doesn't make sense, do it. Even if you are not necessarily drawn in that arena, at least expose yourself to it, because the more you know, the better you'll get at getting information. She says, I think reading and experiencing are probably the 2 biggest things. Practice. It's really practice. I think this is a great point. I'm going to add my little thing in here. And no matter what kind of experiences you have, that is developing reference for you to work off at a later point when it comes to your messaging. So imagine the amount of experiences you could expose yourself to that would allow for information to be imparted on you in a way that it couldn't have been done before because you didn't have that reference. Think of it like that. Very cool. She also says to document your experiences, which I'm all about that. And she mentions learning to shift. I will read this to you because this is fantastic. She says, shifting out of your left brain, although your left brain is valuable, that's your skeptic. Shifting into your right, creative, intuitive side of yourself is most important. So anything you can do that shifts that, be it artwork or meditation, anything like that. She says a perfect example is Tyler Henry, the Hollywood medium. He's the scribbler guy. He's really adorable. She says that his scribbles are his shift. That's his shift into his right brain and out of his left brain. That is a fantastic point that she brings up. And I actually included a video of Tyler Henry doing his scribbling and doing a reading right below that point that she made. Check out all of her quick tips and check out all of her tips on my blog at nextgenmedium.com/blog. Know the Soul Abilities Medical Intuition. And at the blog, that same blog post that I just mentioned, I got social media resources for you if you want to get more into medical intuition, including Facebook groups and Reddit communities. I have videos for you to check out, including one from our very own Elizabeth Thorson. And I threw Carolyn Miss in there as well, so you can get to know her since she was referenced in our conversation. I have a couple books of Carolyn Miss, and I've been following her on YouTube. She's great. I also have links to other things about medical intuition, and I got Goop in there. I also got Psychology Today stuff in there too. So there's that, and sources as well. And I'm wrapping up this episode. Packed so much in here. This episode of NextGen Medium, the podcast, Know the Soul Abilities series with medical intuition. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. She is wonderful. And you can know more about Elizabeth by visiting her website, elizabeththorson.com. And check out my blog post to find links on her. Check out more at my website, nextgenmedium.com, when it comes to your development. You can access my blog, vlog, and podcast there. You can also sign up for your own development session where we can analyze what you've got, what you've experienced, and I can give you tips on what's going on and how to get better and gain that trust for yourself. Book that at my website, nextgenmedium.com. You can find me on Facebook, on Pinterest, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. And while you're at my website, sign up for the newsletter. And while you're at my website, you can throw your email at me and sign up for a newsletter. All right, wrapping it up. Thank you for listening. And that does it. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Happy exploring. See ya. Bye.